Hi, welcome to another edition of the Alan Rosenberg Show. And today I'm going to be doing another episode of a series I do called Treasure or Trash. I think it's kind of a cool series in that I talk about an album that is pretty universally considered amongst the worst, if not the worst album of a particular artist's career. So I got my David Bowie shirt on. Today we're going to be going back to the year 1984 for an album called Tonight. A lot of people consider this possibly his worst album, but it's certainly amongst his worst albums. And the question is it really as bad as people say it is? Let's go through it. So a little history. David Bowie, obviously one of the biggest losses in the history of music, and I'm a huge Bowie fan. But here in the United States, we got to remember, as legendary as he was and as successful as he wasn't a guy that really sold a huge amount of albums. He had a top 10 album in the U.S. with Station to Station, which was 76. I think it was a top 5 album. Maybe it went to like number 3 or something like that. He was not the kind of guy that would get like number 1 albums, at least in the United States. Certainly in the UK he did. So now, from 76 all the way to 1983, he didn't have any top 10 albums in the United States. All these legendary albums you think of, Heroes and Low and all these Scary Monsters, none of them went top 10. 1983 becomes the year of David Bowie. In fact, in the background is my favorite. Oh, look at that right there. Let's Dance. That was funny timing. Couldn't have planned that better. 1983 was the year of David Bowie in the United States, worldwide. He became part of the general zeitgeist. Is that the word? Where anybody who liked any kind of music all of a sudden fell in love with David Bowie, and he became much bigger than he ever was with the album Let's Dance. An album that I don't particularly love, and I'm not trying to be contrarian. Even then, I just thought it was just okay. I love the title track. I love Modern Love. I thought Cat People was amazing. China Girl, which he did with Iggy Pop, it was one of those kind of albums that when it becomes so huge, everything becomes like a hit, and I kind of felt that's why China Girl became a hit, because to me it's not like that great of a song. Iggy Pop did it, but had a great video. Anyway, David Bowie, Let's Dance, huge album. He goes on the massive tour. I got 3 CDs up there and they fall. Anyway, he goes on a massive tour, and he becomes, for the first time, at least in America, a stadium act. He's not playing Madison Square Garden one show anymore. He's playing Giant Stadium. He's playing stadiums all over. And he did it on the Serious Moonlight tour. This is a bootleg. He came out with a movie, Serious Moonlight, which I should bring. I have it downstairs. Great concert, a lot more professional, big choreographed, but, Bowie was always a bit choreographed. Great tour, for sure. He becomes a stadium act for the first time, at least in the United States. Pressure's on, right? Record companies like, man, you are the biggest act in the world, or one of the biggest acts in the world. You got to put out another album. So now it's a year later. We're talking 1984, and he puts out the album Tonight, which all over the world, at least in the UK, becomes a number 1 album. In the US, doesn't go top 10, which says something, because Let's Dance was monstrous to the general public. This album peaks at 11 in the US. There's the cover. So what's the story with Tonight? A lot of people think it's amongst his worst albums. It's certainly a strange album, and we're going to go through it song by song, and we'll talk about it. Now, I remember back in the MTV days, and this is the singles. I got 2 versions of it. This was the single, Blue Jean. Came on blue vinyl. How sweet is that? Now, if you remember in the MTV days, here's another copy of it. Same thing. And Dancing with the Big Boys was the B-side. So he put out like a mini movie. It was called Jazzin' for Blue Jean. It was like over 20 minutes long, and that was the video of the single Blue Jean. He's a really good actor, David Bowie, as you know, with the Elephant Man and everything else. He does a really good acting performance in Jazzin' for Blue Jean. He's like a guy, I remember climbing on a ladder. I remember he's putting up a poster of a concert by a guy who looks awfully like David Bowie, who's Screaming something is his name. Anyway, he kind of plays like a nerdy kind of figure, meets a nice, hot-looking girl, and is going to get her into the concert to meet the rock star guy. And that's kind of the plot of Jazzin' for Blue Jean, the end of it is the video of the performance of Blue Jean. I happen to think Blue Jean's a really good song. It's not one of the greatest David Bowie songs, but it's a good one. I think it's was the right choice for a single from this album. In fact, it's probably the only choice for a single. So, well, that covers pretty much Blue Jean. Now, Blue Jean is only one of 2 songs on this album that David Bowie wrote. There's only 9, skip the bonus tracks, we'll talk about that. Only 9 songs on the original album, right? And Bowie only wrote 2 of them on his own. So let's start with it. The other song that he wrote on his own is the first track, Lovin' the Alien, which I don't really know why he called the album Tonight. I would have called the album Lovin' the Alien. That's a great song. I actually think it's the best song on the album, and I think it's as close as Bowie gets to a classic on this album, because it's like a classic Bowie track. I love the song Lovin' the Alien. It's expansive, got a good production, a good sound. The best track on this album for sure. The album's kind of interesting because it's got how many producers? 3 producers. Bowie, a guy named Derek Bramble, who I think got fired, and Hugh Badgham, who's a legendary producer in the 80s with that big drum sound, which you hear on this album. So the second song is called Don't Look Down. That's an Iggy Pop song, and Iggy Pop's all over this album songwriting-wise. Now, you remember, Bowie had a big working relationship with Iggy Pop around 77, the first 2 Iggy Pop solo records, which was The Idiot and Lust for Life, is Bowie with, Iggy Pop. Definitely Iggy Pop's 2 best albums. China Girl came from The Idiot initially, and there's a couple of covers on this album that we'll get to. So Don't Look Down is the Iggy Pop song. I don't really care for it. It's got that 80s slickness. It's kind of a pseudo reggae track, but it certainly doesn't feel authentically reggae. It's even got like a light jazzy kind of a sound. Doesn't do much for me. The next track is God Only Knows, the Beach Boys classic. All right, so I give Bowie points for covering God Only Knows because I think it is one of the greatest songs ever, and I think it's the best Beach Boys song probably ever. But his version doesn't sound like the Beach Boys. He rocked it up a bit, but it's not a patch on the original version. But, all right, he's entitled to do a cover there. So now you got Don't Look Down, which is a Iggy Pop track. You got Beach Boys track, and now you got Tonight. Tonight's a song that Bowie wrote with Iggy Pop that was originally on Lust for Life. This version is very different, and it does have Tina Turner on vocalizing with him. But she's very non-existent on the track. It's Tina Turner, for God's sakes. Turn her up. Have her a bigger part of the song, but she's not. She's kind of light background. She's just too powerful and too good to be so lightweight on this version. And lightweight is a good description because it's, again, like this light reggae track. It's even got steel drums on it, that island, from like the Caribbean islands kind of sound. I don't know. It's not terrible. It's just not particularly good. Then you got Neighborhood Threat. In Neighborhood Threat, another song that came from Lust for Life. This is a different version of it. A little bit more guitar that got that big 80s sound. It doesn't tell you who produced what song, but that's got to be Hugh Badgham because that's got his sound all over it on the drums. It's really upbeat. It's a little bit bombastic, and it's good. It's not great, but it's good, it's for that 80s sound, take it for what it is. So it's not bad. Side B starts off with Blue Jean. We already talked about that. I think it's a really good song. I love the saxophone on there. Really good saxophone. And check out that Jazzin' for Blue Jean video. It's kind of fun. All right, next up is Tumble and Twirl. Tumble and Twirl is another Bowie Iggy Pop co-write. This one's like very R&B-ish. Got a good thumping bass. There's a good bass sound on Tumble and Twirl. It's got some horns. Just upbeat, but it's kind of slick again. It's got that slick 80s sound. Of course, that's when it was recorded, so it's kind of an unfair criticism, but it just doesn't do that much for me. I keep forgetting another upbeat R&B kind of track, but it's another cover. This one, not written by Iggy Pop, it's Lieber and Stoller. I was unfamiliar with this song, but it's a cover of an old song I keep forgetting, and it's just okay. Then you get Dancing with the Big Boys, which was the B-side of Blue Jean. Yeah, that's a good track. That's another Bowie, Iggy Pop co-write. Tonight. Carlos Alomar actually co-wrote that as well. And that's got a rockier sound. It's got a big 80s sound, but that one kind of works. There's your whole album. So it's just kind of strange. Song for song, it doesn't even compare to Let's Dance. And I'm not that big of a fan of Let's Dance. But on this album, Loving the Alien is awesome. And Blue Jeans is really good. And that's really about it. Dancing with the Big Boys is solid. The rest of it is okay. Tonight is okay, but Neighborhood Threat's okay. It's just kind of okay. Here's the strange part. I actually listen to this album more than I do Let's Dance, but I would never tell you that this is a better album than Let's Dance. They're both kind of yeah. The next album he did was Don't Let Me Down, but that's the follow-up. He did that a couple of years later. That one's actually more interesting than either of these, but the same kind of a problem. None of these, it's far from great. It's just okay. And kind of like this album's got Loving the Alien, which is a great song. This one's got Time Will Crawl, which is a great song. Bang Bang's another pop thing, but it's just okay. So Bowie was just okay at this time. Hope this doesn't fall again. So that's the scoop with Tonight. Is it horrible? Is it unlistenable? Absolutely not. Is it just kind of okay? Yeah. So is it treasure? No. Is it trash? No. But if you don't like David Bowie, it's kind of trash. What else should you talk about this? This is the remastered version. And here's where it gets a little interesting. Because if you look on this version, there's 3 bonus tracks. And each of those 3 bonus tracks is superior than anything else on this album. You got This Is Not America, and this was the 45 I bought when it came out, which was Bowie with Pat Metheny, and this was a song that came from the soundtrack of The Falcon and the Snowman, which you could see. What a great song, This Is Not America. Better than anything on this album. Then you got As the World Falls Down, which I did not know until I got this remastered CD. That's from a film called Labyrinth that he did. Another good song. And then you got Absolute Beginners, which you could find on other Bowie compilations. Man, that's, in my opinion, one of Bowie's best songs ever. It's one of my go-to Bowie tracks. Far superior than anything on this album. So it's funny, if you get this remastered edition and you get the bonus tracks of This Is Not America, As the World Falls Down, and Absolute Beginners, this album becomes pretty damn good. Because those 3 songs are better than anything else on the album. So that's the interesting part. So I don't know if you could still get this. Who put this one out? This is from Virgin. There's a million versions of Bowie albums. If you can get the Virgin release, this was remastered, and those bonus tracks lift this album way up. Much better than Let's Dance and Never Let Me Down. So there you go. My review, Treasure or Trash, David Bowie's Tonight. Never been a fan of the cover as well. I don't know. But I guess it's that 80s time. Let me know what you think. What do you think of this album? And most importantly, I hope you enjoyed my video. If you're new or you're not new but you haven't subscribed, please hit subscribe. Help my channel to grow. I think there's some good quality stuff on there. I hope you agree, but I would love other people out there to find it. And the more subscribers I get, the more I'll show up when people do searches, and we can grow this community. But for you people who are my regular viewers, God, I appreciate your comments, and I appreciate your support, and you're always so nice to me. The internet could be brutal, but you guys really support me, and we have this community, and I'm so appreciative. So thanks again. Have a great night. I will see you on the next time I do a video on the Alan Rosenberg Show. Have a good one.